Old Joe's out with a new immigration policy which could encourage more illegal immigrants to flood across the southern border. We'll let him explain.
For those wives or husbands and their children who have lived in America for a decade or more but are undocumented, this action will allow them to file the paperwork for legal status in the United States, allow them to work while they remain with their families in the United States. Let's be clear, this action still requires undocumented spouses to file all required legal paperwork to remain in the United States. It requires them to pass the criminal background checks, and it doesn't apply to anyone trying to come here today.
All right, now, just for those who don't know, non-citizens who've married Americans have had a pathway to citizenship for a long time. Under the old policy, spouses who cross the border illegally would first have to return to their home countries and reapply from there for a green card, process that could take months or even years. Here with reaction to all this, West Virginia Senator Shelley Capito. Senator, thank you so much for being here. Nobody that I know, maybe you know somebody who's a better expert, but our own Bill Melugin has been down at the border now for several years. He knows the situation better than anybody. No matter what you think about this new amnesty plan of the president's, Bill Melugin calls it a pull factor. That is, it's drawing even more migrants than we have now, and we simply can't afford that right now. We need to go in the opposite direction, and the pull factor, pulling more migrants into the U.S. right now, is exactly the wrong medicine, isn't it?
Well, I think that's one aspect of what the president's done today. It's obviously a political move, and you know he's been there 3.5 years. He could have done this from the beginning, but he's not focusing on the real problem, which is the millions of people that are coming across the border that are committing crimes that we don't know who they are. Some of them are terrorists. Some of them are bringing drugs and fentanyl and killing our American citizens. And it's time for the president to focus on where we're going to stop and provide a deterrence. This is no deterrence, and it does have a pull factor. And so I just sort of honestly haven't given it a whole lot of thought, simply because, number one, I don't think it's going to make it through the courts, and number two, it's so political. It's too little, too late, and it won't have an effect.
Senator, let's talk about this. It's not often that there's bipartisan support for an energy bill, but a bill that you introduced to boost nuclear energy is currently being voted on. It could pass as soon as this evening. And it's really interesting to me, the timing of this bill. Obviously, you've got an administration that has pushed a green agenda, an agenda that really hasn't worked at a time when we need more sources of energy, really essentially than ever. I've covered the energy industry for a long time. When you would close a nuclear power plant, they told you weren't able to reopen it, but we've started doing that and finding ways. It is very expensive. Having said that, we're at a crisis kind of tipping point in this country. We need these plants. We need them to not only sustain ourselves, but to be able to compete globally.
That is correct. This is a national security, an environmental, and an economic bill. And what it does is it modernizes our structure for licensing small modular nuclear, or SMR, reactors. They're smaller. It's a new innovative technique and a technology that's moved forward that I think holds the key to an all-of-the-above energy plan. Yes, we need coal and natural gas, and we need our renewables, but we need to have nuclear play a much larger role if we're going to meet the demands of twice the amount of energy that's going to be needed in this country over the next 5 to 10 years. And so we have a very bipartisan. It should pass with only 3 or 4 people voting no. It's already passed the House overwhelmingly, and I've led this effort for over a year, and I'm really happy to see that we've got bipartisan support for this.
Senator, before you go, we wanted to ask you about this. It kind of deals with energy and the EPA, but not really. It turns out the Biden administration is using the EPA to fund all kinds of radical groups with money from the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, which is more about spending money on green energy policies than anything else. But your office is looking into it. We've been talking about it here on air, about how these woke policies are, you just scratch one of these new spending programs and you find all of these bureaucratic methods of pushing woke policies. What are you finding out about it, and what can you do about it?
Well, we are definitely pulling the cover back here in the name of green energy, where they have all of these billions and billions of dollars in these pots of money at the EPA. We have found, and I have found that they've put $50 million to the Climate Justice Initiative alone. If you go on, just simply on their website, they're anti-ICE, they're pro-Hamas, they don't believe in the police, they don't believe in a safe nation.
What does that have to
just
do with
one
green
group.
energy or the EPA? I mean, it just doesn't have anything to do with that.
No, and then further on, we found that 2 immigration groups, same thing, $50 million that they're going to have a say in, and all of their policies are anti-immigration enforcement, which has nothing to do with greening the economy or environmental issues. And so the president can say he wants to green the country and he wants to take care of immigration. He's feeding money into groups that are going directly against the policies that we believe in, and a lot of times I think they're very anti-American.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep looking at this. I'm going to keep looking and exposing this week to week, because this is just the tip of the iceberg.
I just was going to say, it's really a misappropriation of funds, Senator. Ultimately, these are taxpayer dollars, and they're, they're using loopholes and creative language to be able to get the funds where they want them to go. But that's not how they sold it. Last word.
No, they're giving money to radical groups that really don't stand for the principles that I think the vast majority of the stuff I have. They're not doing oversight, or they're rewarding groups that reward them at the ballot box and other places. So I just find this to be just eye-popping, and it's only, at this point it's $100 million. They're giving away billions of dollars, and many to these types of much to this type of groups.
It's fraud on the taxpayers. It's our money.
It is
We want to know where it's
taxpayer.
going. Thank you for putting the spotlight on it.
Well, we'll be back talking about it. Thanks.
Good. Thank you, Senator.